Rules of Engagement was given to me by Scott Rudin, who was a very good producer, who had tried to develop it for 10 years at Universal. And then Scott gave it to me and to Dick Zanuck to produce it. And we met with the fellow who wrote it, who we found was a very interesting guy, a man named Jim Webb. And Jim Webb had been, among other things, a decorated war hero from Vietnam, and then later the Secretary of the Navy under Ronald Reagan. And he's a man of great courage and great principle, and this is really his story. It's a warrior's story.
The story actually proceeded from a question about the unique notions of loyalty in the military, when you use the term, and it proceeded out into the issues of rules of engagement. I was sitting down with Scott Rudin. He and I had worked on this a number of years ago, and I made a comment to him that in the Marine Corps, loyalty means you'll die for somebody even if you don't like them. And he said, you know, there's a movie in that. And so I started thinking about the notion of these two main characters and what they had done, and I went out and wanted to find the story in an area that would be fresh to a viewer, and yet would really have some density to it in terms of, you know, having to get their teeth into something that's really important.
Rules of Engagement are written individually for every conflict that the United States is involved in. They are written by a group of people sitting in an air-conditioned room in Washington, making a determination about what the soldiers or Marines or sailors, American military, can do in an action, in a given action, in a foreign country. And very often, the rules of engagement will be written to take in the sensibilities of the host country, more so than the safety of American troops.
If possible, the enemy will be warned first, then asked to surrender. Deadly force is the last resort.
Go on.
When possible, try to arrange for the evacuation of civilians prior to any U.S. attack.
I was attracted to the role of Terry Childers because he is a very complicated and conflicted man, even though he's a career Marine, kind of poster boy hero guy. And also, I finally read a version of the script that made sense to me and made the character kind of come to life in a much better way than I'd read it before. And all of a sudden, you know, that was William Friedkin and Tommy Lee Jones, so win-win.
Sherry Lansing sent a script over from Paramount. And when she told me that Billy Friedkin would direct it and Dick Zanuck would produce it, and there was a pretty good chance we could get Sam Jackson to act in it, it was very hard to say no to the idea of playing on such a fine team.
I consider the combination of Tommy Lee Jones and Samuel Jackson something like the modern equivalent of Spencer Tracy and Clark Gable. Two tremendous actors who have a great deal of liking and respect for each other, who've always wanted to work together, but who haven't.
Well, working with Tommy Lee was something that I wanted to do. You know, Tommy comes to work as prepared as, you know, I think I usually am. He has a lot of ideas. He's done a lot of homework. He got notes all over his script, just like me, coming in and talking about things that he wants to change because this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense.
It brings a lot of relaxation to us. Everybody gains a lot of confidence with knowing that Sam is there.
Sam Jackson plays Colonel Childers, who is a blood and guts Marine, who's a true patriot, a true hero. He's sent in this picture to quell an embassy riot in Yemen.
He has his marching orders, and his marching orders are to go in there and rescue the ambassador and his family. He's done that. His next objective is to get all his Marines out of there safely, and something is going on that he's not able to do that. They're being killed, and he needs to eliminate that threat so he can get the rest of them out of there alive, and he does that. And once he's done that and they're gone, all of a sudden there's a price to pay.
So now the question of the film becomes, is he simply, you know, a bloodthirsty murderer or a dedicated Marine? And the film then becomes about friendship and loyalty and courage under extreme circumstances.
Sir, are you ordering me to fire into the crowd? Over. What is it about this order you don't understand, Captain Lee?
And that is the question of the film. Is Colonel Childers' act an act of extreme heroism and courage, or is it an act of murder?
When we first meet him, it's 1968. He's a young Marine. He's in Vietnam. He gets shot up rather badly, then has to come back to the United States. He goes to law school and becomes a military lawyer. Not a very good one. He graduates 67th in his class, and after 30 years later winds up with almost no self-esteem and correctly looks upon his life as a failure. It's then that he's called upon by his old friend Terry Childers, played by Sam Jackson, to defend him in a court-martial. The character I play doesn't want to do that. He doesn't feel up to the job, but he knows that he owes his life to his old friend, and he can't turn his old friend down. For the sake of his friend, he has to be something other than the comfortable failure that he has been.
No, you don't understand what I'm asking. I want you to be my lawyer.
I'm a good enough lawyer to know you need a better lawyer than me.
Tommy Lee Jones is a subtle, mercurial actor. He's capable of great tenderness and great violence, and you never know when either one is going to emerge. In other words, he's unpredictable.
So your order would have been hold your fire to the extent possible, Marines, and to the extent not possible, fire away.
Ben Kingsley, who plays the ambassador, plays him as a conflicted man.
In order to save his livelihood, his wife, his child, his job, his everything, his dream, he has to lie regarding the man who saved his life. This is a terrible twist. Very painful, I would think, for him. All these decisions for most of the people in the film are extremely difficult decisions.
I have always tried not to make a judgment of the characters that I depict in a film. Neither a judgment of goodness nor evil. In fact, I strive very hard to achieve a lack of judgment so that ultimately the audience will decide.
If Childers isn't held totally responsible, then the United States will be. And just guess where the finger is eventually going to point.
Me?
William Sokol is a national security advisor who's given this terrible task of making this very difficult decision whether or not to hang out Samuel Jackson to dry. And I think as a viewer, and you watch what he does, if you hate him, take an extra second and put yourself in his position and look at the interests of the United States that are going to be undone if Jackson is exonerated.
I accepted this assignment because I believe in the merits of the government's case. I am not going to stack the deck against this guy. I will try this case on good evidence only.
I'm glad to hear it.
I've just really liked Guy Pearce and thought he was not only a fine and subtle actor, but a chameleon. He was my first choice for that role, as were Jackson and Jones.
When you watch this kid act in Rules of Engagement, you'd think he's from Brooklyn or maybe Massachusetts. In fact, he's an Australian. He's a consummate actor. It's very difficult to even recognize him from one job to the next. Very fine young actor.
The most important thing that a director does is choosing the cast. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the most perfect cast I've ever had.
Billy Friedkin's a great director. He is extremely good action shooter. In fact, when I finished the film, I finished screening the film, I called Dick Zanuck and I said, that's that French Connection camera at work when you look at the embassy shots and this sort of thing. He has a very, very, very good way of taking a casual camera into a complicated situation and pulling emotion out of it.
Well, working with Billy is kind of like a dream deal for me, because I like to work kind of quick and efficiently, and I think that's what he does. He sets up his shots. You come in, you do your thing, and Bill watches it and goes, "Hey, that was great. How you feel about that?" And he said, I'm pleased with that. And he goes, "You want to do another one?" Not unless you want me to. Okay, let's move, man.
He's ready, willing, and able to get the job done on the first take or the second. sometimes the third, very rarely the fourth. And I like that.
The idea is to come completely prepared, but to be flexible enough to allow your preparation to be altered by either good ideas or insights and flashes of genius, which very often take place.
I think my favorite scene in the movie is us walking in the woods, talking about how the Corps changed and how he made the right choice. He's retiring, and I'm still out there, and I got my command, and it's a pretty moving moment that sets him up for what's about to happen to him.
It's a whole new ball game. No friends, no enemies, no front, no rear, no victories, no defeats, no mama, no papa. We're orphans out there.
I like it when the helicopters fly in. I love helicopter shots. I like the approach of the helicopters into Ouarzazate, which is supposed to be Sana'a in Yemen.
At the very end, when the old NVA colonel and Jackson exchanged salutes, a lot of people think that the guys who served in Vietnam would object to that, but I will tell you, there's a lot of truth in that scene. You know, that I respect the people I was on the battlefield with.
America today feels great pressure at being considered the policeman of the world. And so we approach these various actions as gingerly as we can, and we try, as with the surgeon's credo, to first do no harm. And very often the troops are in the middle of all this and unable to function.
I don't think this is going to alienate the public from the military. I think it'll illuminate what a difficult position the military has.
There are circumstances under which it is mandatory to question orders in the military. If you receive orders that are clearly illegal, one of the instructions is that a Marine is a reasoning agent and you're held accountable by law. So this is one of the areas that gets really complicated in these war crime situations.
You think there's a script for fighting a war without pissing somebody off? Follow the rules and nobody gets hurt? Yes, innocent people probably died. Innocent people always die. But I did not exceed my order.
There are rules, and Marines are sworn to uphold them.
I was not going to stand by and see another Marine die just to live by those fucking rules.
Rules of Engagement is probably the most important and meaningful film I've ever made. In that it is, while I think it has a great deal of dramatic and entertainment value, I think it's really about some very important things.